Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Monday. We are here to talk about something that I know is on a lot of people's minds, and it keeps floating across my mind too, so you're in good company. And today I'm flying solo. It's Marta. Hey, Michael, good to see you. Today we're talking about fear and anxiety. So what does that mean to you? And what does that mean to you as a business owner, as a creative person, and as somebody who's just navigating these uncertain times? So I don't know, I'm not an expert in uncertainty, but I kind of am. So I'm a classically trained professional musician. And what that entails is 100% uncertainty to a certain degree. So every time you go on stage, no matter what preparation you've had, there is 100% uncertainty. You really don't know what's going to happen. So as a creative person, as a performer, I have done the following. I have tipped my stand over, sending my music flying. I have inhaled my own hair, which is why I kind of wore this hairstyle today. When you play oboe and you have to breathe, sometimes it's better to just have your hair back. So just hearkening back to that time, just little wink at that time in my life. I've also had the music on my stand, but completely upside down, but it didn't know that until the third page in. I've had to stop in performances. I've had to do the equivalent of starting over, and that has happened with groups, and that has happened with me as an individual. So, hi, hey, Jamie.
How are you?
Good. Let me turn this around so we can see you.
Okay.
Just to know how to do that. Okay, there you are. Hey. Hey everybody, this is Jamie. Jamie, say hi. Tell us who you are, what you're all about.
Hi, so I'm Jamie Sutta. I'm the founder and artistic director of the Children's Voice Chorus. How are you today?
Good. And we just saw you on TV and on Facebook, and regardless of not being able to be in person with a chorus, which is a normal thing about a chorus, you guys are finding ways to perform even without being in the same place at the same time.
Yep, absolutely. We are going to keep the music going regardless. So,
amazing. Yeah. I love that. Cool. So we're talking about fear. I was just sharing about all the things that have gone wrong on stage, because when you perform, you are 100% in uncertainty. Had to start over. I've inhaled my hair. I've had pages go flying. I've had incidents where my equipment failed, and this has happened in auditions and performances and all sorts of other places. So you really never know. So when it comes to navigating fear and uncertainty, I feel like those of us who are trained in some way, and athletes are the same way. You can have your routine, you can do your training, and then in the end, I also used to do ice skating. You might fall in a big jump. You just have to prepare so that when the time comes, you're prepared to do the leap. And I think actually Paul Schwartz is a pianist. He was on the show last week, and he was talking about how people don't practice performing, we practice practicing, right? So when it comes to actually dealing with your fear, if you're just practicing practice, you're not really looking at fear. So you work with children, the Children's Voice Chorus. Tell us, when your kids get scared on stage or getting ready to, do a performance, how do you handle it? How do you coach them into their best fearless selves?
So one of the first things that we tell our kids is, it's very natural and human to experience fear and worry and stage fright, anxiety, all of that, especially if it's the first time that you're doing it. What's nice about a choir is that, oh my goodness, my son is very loud. I'm sorry. So what's nice about a choir is that, the people around you give you a little bit more confidence. So it's not just you. So it's a nice place to start to develop that confidence, start to kind of be a little bit more fearless within a group. But one of the first things that we talk to our kids about, as far as is the way that you look, your poise, your posture, and the way that you present yourself physically. Because sometimes you know, when a good singing posture, a good singing position is to look tall, proud. And so, you know, one of the things is if you are afraid, you could look like you're not afraid. And then that actually tells your brain that you're not as scared as you thought you were. So
that's so true. It's so funny because, and Laura just joined us. Hey, Laura.
Hi.
Jamie. We're talking about fear and anxiety and kind of how we handle that. She was talking about the kids in the chorus. You're a singer too, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say as well. But also making yourself feel taller and look taller and just handling it kind of like in a fake it till you make it kind of thing from the outside. One of the things I love seeing is Yo-Yo Ma. So when Yo-Yo Ma performs, there's nothing about him that is hunched. And you know, there's wisdom that you learn in school that is just what you're talking about, which is if you're hunched over, you're more likely to be in your fight or flight. So that would be the fight thing, but you physically diminish yourself by hunching over. But when Yo-Yo performs, he's like, it's like his heart is expanding outward, and physically he looks like so relaxed and so calm. And so I love what you're saying, is especially with kids, like be the part of being calm and big. And I love that. Or do you have you
it's like,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that we talk a lot about power posing in choir right before performances because I mean there's actual studies that show like when you make a big pose with your body, you look confident, it connects to your brain. And the other thing we do is connect to the breath when we're singing as well, which is a very calming mechanism.
Can you tell us more about power posing? And then I want to hear from Laura as well. What does that mean to folks who are not like used to doing that?
So I don't know if you've seen Amy Cuddy's TED Talk on power posing, but I'm going to just demonstrate this for you.
Great.
Any large, any, you know, this or, you know, holding a power pose for a few seconds will literally, you know, I do this sometimes in the bathroom when I'm about to do some like presentation or I'm nervous about something, and it really just gives me a little bit of confidence. It sends certain chemicals out of your brain, or I'm not exactly sure what all the science is behind it, but it helps you to feel more confident, to feel braver, because when, like you said, when we are hunched over, when we have our arms kind of across, we're protecting ourselves, we're emanating fear and anxiety. And whereas like, you know, a strong, powerful pose, like I am strong, I am confident, I am brave, you know, that actually communicates to the brain.
That's amazing. And that's actually kind of what you're describing. I do a lot of spiritual studies. So for me, that feels like a mudra. So, and there's one mudra called the Ganesha Mudra, and I'm holding my phone for the Instagram live stream, but it actually requires you to put your palms facing each other and you pull, and you breathe as you pull, because Ganesha is the breaker of obstacles. And so you're kind of like, you have a natural tension there, but you breathe and breathe, and there's something that happens when you connect through this kind of mudra, like it just rewires I experience it as kind of like I get a sense of calm. So I love what you're saying, because it's like these ancient things, you know, maybe this is our modern equivalent of that or something. But power posing, okay, so you can physically do something with your breath and your physical body to kind of like face fear. I love that. Laura, what are your thoughts
on facing fear?
Oh, sorry. Tell us who you are and what you're up to.
So I'm Laura, and I work with Jamie. Hi, Jamie, with the Children's Voice. And we've been talking a lot about different ways to be innovative in this time with the choir. And I actually was recognizing, as you all were talking about singing earlier, I recognized like 3 or 4 days ago that I hadn't used my voice, because I use my voice on a daily basis. I'm always singing for our jobs. And in the past 2 weeks, I've used my voice so much less than I'm used to in my regular life. So part of me overcoming some of the fear and anxiety that I've been having about like recording myself and being more in public has been exercising the use of my voice in like my home and private life in order to make myself more comfortable with the idea of doing it out on the internet.
Yeah, so what have you done to get yourself ready? So what have you been doing to use your voice differently at home?
Well, honestly, I'm singing. I'm treating myself as though I was one of my voice students, and I'm making sure that I have at least 30 minutes a day where I dedicate time to my own singing. And the act of singing, because I've been doing it for so long, really helps to ground me and calm me, and it adds like the routine back into my life because it's something that I'm used to doing every day. And so that grounding kind of sets me up for speaking to you lovely people.
We won't ask you to sing just yet. Well, it's interesting you say that because last week we talked a lot about routines and rituals and how a routine and a ritual, both of those things are choices. And when you feel like things around you are out of control, there is something really grounding in being able to choose something, even if you have no idea what else is going to happen in the day. So that's like a really healing, beautiful thing. I'm really, really glad you brought that up. Let's talk more about the fear of going online. So now, I don't know about you, but I've spent more time on Zoom in the last week than I spent in the last month, and I do coach online sometimes. So how do you, and this is another way of, we can experience stage fright. So what are the ways that you get yourself ready for being out there and being out on the internet? Who knows who's seeing it? As we're talking, this is live on Facebook and Instagram. So I've committed to doing this for at least 30 days. I never know what's on the other side of it, but I figure if we're helping somebody, then it's worthwhile. But I had to kind of get over something. So how do you get over that barrier? Jamie, why don't you go?
Well, I want to just echo what Laura said, because for my churches, I've had to sing online, and it's a one take thing where, you know, you're totally exposed. Within a church service, I often lead worship, and so we're singing and people are singing with me, and so I don't stress if I don't sound perfect. And so, you know, as musicians, we're always wanting to sound as perfect as the best that we can. And so I've become very self-conscious about, okay, I have to sing this song on Friday. I have to record this, and it's one take. It's not live as in they're like showing it live, but it's live in the sense that I don't get to edit it or anything. And so, like Laura said, it's actually been really great for me because it's pushed me to practice more on my own singing, which is something that I don't normally focus on when I get so busy with everything else. And so I feel like in the last 2 weeks, my own singing has improved. And so, and it's also, you know, I'm also practicing grace with myself because I'm live and I'm like, you know what? That's not bad for being live. I'm just going to go ahead and be like, it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but I'm just going to give myself some grace and be like, okay, that's fine. That is fine. And that's the best that I could do today. And I practiced, and it's better than it would have been last week. So that's one of the things I do. And then I also take showers. And, you know, sometimes, you know, I'm like, last week, the first time I had a Zoom meeting was like, okay, I'm going to go take a shower to not leave my house, you know, put on makeup and do my hair, which was odd. But, so those are kind of the things I do is I'm practicing more, and I'm taking showers.
All right. 3 cheers for showers. I love that. And you both said something which I think is really interesting, which is going back to your own practice. So often, especially when we start to create things and we do businesses, we forget about the creativity, and we forget about the thing that is the reason we started doing the thing in the first place. So I love that both of you have talked about kind of like going within and reconnecting with your own purpose in your art form, you know, to really find your inspiration. I think that's really beautiful. Let's talk about what other things you're hearing from your family. So both of you work with families, and both of you work with people whose lives are now, like Jamie, I know your kids are at home. This is new. How are you kind of like navigating these times? And what do you say to people who you see are like visibly shaken or fearful or anxious? Because you are in a leadership role. So how are you handling that? Laurah, let's start with you.
That's a really challenging question for me to answer, actually. So I work with Jamie at the Children's Voice, but I also have an adult community choir called Miami Sound Choir. And because they're adults, they're a little bit more open, I guess, about their fears and anxieties surrounding this, what's going on right now. My husband in the background. And I don't know, I think I'm still trying to figure out what's the best way of going about speaking to people. And I know that there's nothing that I really can do to make anyone feel better, but I'm making it a point, at least me and Jamie are making a point to meet with our choirs on a weekly basis. I'm making it a point to meet with my adult community choir to make sure that we're, as much as possible, still trying to keep everything regular. So even though we're not singing during these weekly Zoom meetings, we are communicating with one another, making sure that everyone is all right, being of service in any way that we can, just checking in with one another. I think that's the best that I've been able to come up with, but if both of you have any more suggestions, I'm so open for it.
Well, we are here to share and learn. So yeah, Jamie, how about you? And anything to share would be great.
Yeah, so one of the first Zoom rehearsals, I guess you could call it, I had was last week on Tuesday with my older high school girls. And we spent, I had planned to do, certain things with them in this rehearsal, but we really spent like 90% of the time just talking about how they felt. So it really kind of just felt like a group therapy session. And so I think just letting them talk a little bit, like checking in with them. One of the first questions we asked our kids are like, are you okay? Are you healthy? How are you feeling about everything that's happening? We let them, and we kind of do this at the Children's Voice regularly anyway. We allow our kids to kind of, have moments where they can speak on, there's opportunities where they can share and express and talk about what they're going through. They don't all choose to do that, but we do give them opportunities. But on Tuesday, I thought it was really, I feel like, a lot of the feedback I got from the girls is they were like super comforted that they, to see each other, first of all, and then to talk about how everybody was doing. Because when you hear in this isolation, you then hear like, okay, everybody's experiencing kind of the same feelings. It's like we're all in this together, that unity of humanness. And so, I personally, I turn to prayer, I turn to God. Like that's really the thing that kind of keeps me going. So definitely keeps me going. And I think if I did not have that, I would not be doing well. So, but as far as, leading our kids, I think just giving them opportunity to talk and reflect. It's hard to see people now, and it's hard to tell whether somebody's visibly shaken. But some of our families have shared with us, I've asked them to share with us, and some of them do, some of them don't, but it's such a new thing for everyone that it's like we're kind of learning every week and adapting. So
that's right. I feel like things are starting to kind of, I don't want to say normalize, but it's clear we're not going to be leaving the situation tomorrow. So I feel like
right.
they're kind of like looking for the value in it, or looking for ways that they can preserve kind of like the realities, whatever they can preserve of the past ways, but bringing it into the current reality. And I'm seeing like a whole lot of creativity. I don't know about you, but like, chorus is not something that's supposed to be online, like single people, single, like as a group. It's like, to your point, you're not hearing and responding and being kind of a unit at the same time.
Right. I mean, the thing that's awesome about, kind of this happening in modern times, like if you can look at some positives about it, is that we have the technology to stay connected and to continue making music in some way. I mean, nothing will replace making music in person together. But in the meantime, technology has really afforded us the opportunity to keep our children engaged and learning and doing something different. Because as I was telling my team earlier, these kids are, especially this week, as they're back from spring break, virtually, they're going to be on their computers, just staring at their screens, trying to get homework done for teachers. And even though we're also asking them to use technology, we're asking them to use it in a different way, where they're recording themselves singing. So they're really practicing. So there are some benefits from that. But we definitely long for the day when we're back together again.
For sure, for sure. I love that. And Laurah, tell us about, so I've been doing quite a bit of coaching of people who have small businesses, people who are entrepreneurs who are just starting to offer a product or service, or who have now shifted into like a growth phase. And one of the things that we're mostly talking about is like communications and, you know, speed rather than perfection. So, and part of that is based on the fear that we talked about earlier of like, this is going to be out there and people are going to watch the video where I talk to them about the way that business is going to be now for the, you know, for the programs we're running or for the services we're offering. But people who also want to do the video because they feel it's important to have like a human being, like somebody who's the face of the organization. You are the face of your organizations, both of you. So, and you're entrepreneurs, both of you in your own right. How are you handling like the communications? Like what have you found important to make sure people know? Because I know there are people tuning in who have their own businesses too, who are going to watch this later on YouTube or whatever, but you know, communicating with people, you can't wait, right? You can't have it perfect. So how are you facing that challenge? Laurah, let's hear from you.
The very first thing that I would recommend to anyone is to have some kind of instant communication with whoever your patrons are. So with Miami Sound Choir, we have a WhatsApp chat, and I know that Jamie and Voice of Miami Ensemble also have that. So in real time, as I'm getting updates, like as soon as our space shut down the day of rehearsal 2 Wednesdays ago, you know, that was our first line of defense, was communicating directly with the people who participate in our programs.
Mm-hmm.
And then beyond that, as much as I can, trying to keep everyone else who's interested in us informed, but secondarily, right? So I've been communicating on social media and on WhatsApp with my choir members, and then sending emails to people who have shown interest with us in the past to see if they want to keep being involved or starting to be involved in the future. But most importantly right now for me is to keep retention and keep the people who have been participating to keep on participating through all of this.
Mm-hmm. And what are you hearing from them when you send these communications? What are the kinds of questions or the worries people have?
I think right now, at least with my adults in Miami Sound Choir, the most challenging part of all of this is time management. I'm noticing for a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people's schedules and the different aspects of their lives are bleeding into one another. And so it's really challenging for them to keep up with any kind of extra demands that I may have of them. So usually we meet once a week for 2 hours for rehearsal, and that's their commitment to choir. But now we are having these meetings once a week online, but then also I'm asking them to take their own personal time. They can choose to do it on Wednesday if it takes them the amount of time that they would in rehearsal, but most of them that's not the case. So I'm asking them to record their part of a song, and you know, that could, depending on what kinds of lives they lead, that can take them an hour, but it could also take them 4 hours. And it's just a different style of commitment, which is challenging for a lot of people right now.
Totally hear that. I'm working with a group up in Miami Lakes, and they are doing everything. They have an after school program. They decided to go Google Classroom route, and very similar to you, they're asking people to upload their homework. So, and they're learning choreography. So they have to like learn the choreography and then show that they're learning. So I think it's interesting how now it's kind of like one-to-one, we're looking at accountability even in group settings, but there still are ways where you can keep tabs on people and they can give you kind of that feedback, even if you're kind of like only sending out information in one direction sometimes. How about you, Jamie?
So I think that, you know, because we work with younger singers, when we hear from parents, we also hear about the time management thing, but then there's like the added, you know, parents who still have to work and are, you know, now expected to kind of homeschool their kids or make sure that their kids are doing what they're supposed to do. And, you know, as far as communication, you know, we serve an incredibly diverse group of kids. And so we have a population that getting in touch with is really difficult. Their parents are still having to work, and they're vulnerable youth. Some of them may have been offered, the whole Comcast thing is supposed to be free for internet, but if they didn't pay their bills, they don't get it. So like some of the kids don't actually have internet. Some of their parents don't read and write in English. They can't help their kids. And so like the home situation varies drastically from family to family. And so we've seen a very different situation depending on the home. So what we're hearing as far as communication, the people who are communicating back with us are the ones who are able to, and some of them just don't. And so we're still trying to get in touch with some of our kids, and most of them we've been able to contact, but some of them we can't. And so, it's like a different, different needs, and trying to figure out as an organization, how do we serve that population right now when they need it most, and the thing with certain populations, it's more like, okay, we need to get them fed, we need that kind of thing. So we work with our partner down south branches, and they're really doing a lot of great work feeding families down in that community. And it really just kind of the priorities kind of change a little bit, when you need basic needs in life, that's where the priorities shift to. And as far as communication, it can be difficult with certain populations. Yeah.
For sure. And thank you for pointing that out. I mean, I'm working with a lot of groups that have, that work with youth, and, it's not, this is where you really see kind of privileges and accessibility, especially with regard to internet, because it is not something that is available to everybody. And I'm really glad you pointed out how there are people not getting access to information and to services, but I know branches, they do great work. And so, down in South Dade, there are people who are doing work in partnership. So it's great to hear how, listen, I was going to do a tool today, and I'm so glad you joined, because I wasn't sure if I'd be talking to myself or what. Everyone is, of course, welcome to join this live stream anytime. So I go with whatever, where the action is, which is you guys right now. I do have a tool that I'm just going to quickly share, which is basically again, with me, everything is blank white paper. So how you respond to fear is a choice. And there are two ways that I have noticed people doing it, which is panic and hoarding, and then generosity and kindness. Okay, so what I wanted people to do is just write down instances of panic and hoarding that you've noticed, and then generosity and kindness that you've noticed. And this could be in your personal life, this could be things that you've seen on television or social media, but just get a sense of where is there panic and hoarding, because that is one reaction, and where is there generosity and kindness, and what does that look like? Second part of this is, in both columns, you're going to say, I feel. So when I see panic and hoarding, or I notice myself doing these activities, I feel what? And then when I notice generosity and kindness, I feel what? The idea is to source kind of more intelligence, more visible understanding of how we personally react to both these things, so that we can make an informed choice for our own selves. And then the third part is just, I can. So with this information and knowing how I feel and knowing what it looks like, what do we actually have the power to do? So in the bottom, you fill out, I can, with regard to hoarding. If I notice myself doing this, what is a choice I can make? And when I see generosity, understanding how it makes me feel, what can I do to act on that information? So this is a very simple tool. It's like a 6-point grid, but it's just intended to help remind people that we have a choice with how we respond to fear. And it doesn't have to be COVID-19. It could be fear about being on my own. It could be fear of going on camera amidst the unknown. And in that case, the top headers would, of course, be different. But this is a tool you can use to dial into any fear or anxiety that you have. I am not a medical professional. However, this is, I find, a way to kind of like bring in your feelings and bring in your logic and bring in just the wisdom that comes from your intuition that is kind of hard to access sometimes otherwise. So I hope you use the tool. I will probably be putting a lot of these tools I'm coming up with on my website just to be helpful to people so they can download them as an evergreen kind of thing. Stay tuned. I'm looking forward to learning how to do that on like Canva or something. But this is really wonderful thing to have you here. This is a forum for people to bring their best, to be able to share what they're up to, how they're handling this time, and to really kind of learn from one another, share and learn. So is there anything that you'd like to add, or any final questions or things you'd like to communicate?
No, just thank you so much for this time. Thank you for sharing with us. I think everyone is scrambling and trying to navigate and learning and adapting, and it's going to look different on a weekly basis here ongoing. But as you know, one of the things I was noticing is that we are going to, once we are on the other side of this, we're going to have a lot that we have learned in the meantime.
For sure.
Yeah.
Huge opportunity right now. Huge.
Yeah.
Cool. How about you, Laura? Final thoughts?
Thank you to you, Marta. Thank you, Jamie. To quickly piggyback on what Jamie said, you know, we are all really learning some technical skills right now.
Yeah.
and those technical skills will take us into the future and will catapult there. So that's a big positive coming out of this that we'll hopefully see the fruits of very shortly.
I agree with you. We are learning flexibility overnight. So, and you're right, it's going to keep changing. But in any case, I'm so thankful for what you do for our kids here in Miami, and just for the leaders you are amazing people. I'm so glad to have this conversation with you. What a treat. And I know we've have shared a lot here with the people who are going to be watching as well. So thank you. And hopefully we'll see you again.
Thanks, Marta.
Okay, bye.
Bye.